Okay, so the first thing we need to do to set up our grid is to create a new Photoshop file. So we're going 10 by 10, 150 pixels per inch, RGB, background color can be whatever you like. I'm going to go with black, square pixels, go. Then the next thing we need to do is set up our grid lines. So to do that, you go New Grid Layout, 5 columns, 5 rows, 0 gutter and 0 gutter. Yeah, okay. Another thing we should do, just so we don't go crazy, is lock our guides. That way we're not accidentally dragging stuff all the time. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is create some shapes that are going to serve as masks to crop our textures. So you click the rectangle tool, make sure it is set to shape. You want the stroke set to none. So to do that, you click stroke, click on this little / thing. The fill, I'm just going to go with gray for now. And then I just draw. And I'm going to just try to hug one of these guidelines. And one of the nice things about the guides is Photoshop is going to try to snap it to those guidelines, which will keep our composition really clean. We won't have weird gaps or imperfections that will distract the viewer. Okay, so we could draw these one by one, but a little bit quicker way to do this is to duplicate it using Alt drag. I'm holding down the Alt button and I'm sliding over. This Alt drag trick works across Creative Cloud. You can use it in Illustrator and in Design to create new pages and artboards. So it's super handy. And I'm just going to go one by one across. So the next thing we need to do is, right now it's just rectangle 1, blah, 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 blah. We need to figure out a way to keep track of where we are in this grid, because there's going to be lots of layers, maybe 100 layers when we're done. So we need to be able to get around and navigate. Also, it is a great idea, maybe critical, to keep yourself organized, keep your files organized, and keep your layers organized. And so what you should do, and you're going to get this time, you're going to resist, but you're going to get this time back, I promise, is just name everything what it is. So for me, what I'm going to do, my little convention, is I'm going to say the columns are letters, A, B, C, D, E, and the rows are number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So then every cell is going to have a unique number. A1, B1, C1, D1, E1, A2, B2, etc., etc. So let's just do that real quick. A2, B1, C1, D1, E1. Okay. So I can use that same Alt drag trick again. And this time I've just grabbed them all and I'm going to Alt drag and go. And now I'm going to name these. A2, B2, C2, D2, E2. And once again, like the ghost of Christmas future here, if you're not naming your layers, it will come back to bite you. All right, so let me pause this for a second and then I'll fill this in. Okay, so now that we have that set up, we want to save our file. So we're going to save it on our computer. And where? I do everything out of Dropbox. Dropbox is very similar to Google Drive. It is a cloud syncing cloud service thing. I organize everything about around what it is. So for teaching what school I'm teaching at, or for any school. And so for you all, I would say somewhere in a location that makes sense to you, you should have a folder called Fall 2022 or FA22 or something. And then in that folder, you have a folder for each class you're taking that semester. And then in each of those folders, you should have a folder for each and every project and then each and every milestone. Once again, like, organization is everything. So we're in 1B color grid. I'm going to say, okay, we're going to call this thing 1B color grid setup. And I like to version my files. So as I iterate, as I update them and revise them, so I can always kind of go back in time. And then I also like this convention of putting your initials at the end. So if you're starting to work in a team, it's really nice to know who was the last person to work on that stuff. Okay. So color grid setup. Oh, great. Okay. Do a little housekeeping here. Go to join fabrication. So I'm going to make a little shortcut because I'm heading over here a lot. Okay. All right. So I'm going to just get nice and organized. I'm going to just retire this stuff for now, or just hide it from this demo. I'll save that. Okay, so what we need is our files. So now I'm going to navigate over to my images, and I'm going to look to see what I have that's red. How about this one? Go back over to Photoshop, and there's a number of different ways to do it, but I'm going to show you one way. I'm going to just drag it from the Finder right into Photoshop. And what that's going to do is create a smart object. What that means is it's going to embed the file in, and it's going to let you work non-destructively. So let me show you what I mean. This has a little icon on it. I can make this a little bigger if I go panel options. All right. There's a little icon on it, and if I double click on this, it'll open the original file, which is cool. So let me just show you the difference. So if I make this small, and I'm going to make another copy of this, alt dragging here. So I got a second copy, right? And it's still a smart object. So I'm going to just break it for a second. Don't need to worry about what I'm doing. It doesn't have that little box anymore. Now it's just pixels. So watch what happens. As I start, like, oh, make it smaller. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to go back and crop into it. If we look at the two side by side, we see that there's a difference, right? This is kind of fuzzy and blurry, and it's been messed up a bit. See, like, I lost all that detail versus this one. So here, let me show you. Again, see this one, I can go all the way teeny tiny and go big. Here, I'll go really big to really show you the difference between the two. Versus this one. Small again. See, it's all blurry and not all that. Look at the pedal and stuff. So this whole smart object thing is part of an idea called non-destructive editing. So it's preserving, it's linking to those original pixels to preserve the fidelity in the image. Okay? All right, so what we want to do, I'm going to go back to how I had it before, panel options, none, is use our little square from A1 to crop this photo. So I'm going to move it all the way down to there, right on top of it. And I'm going to right click. I'm going to say create clipping mask. And what that's done is, so even if I turn these off, if I move this photo, it's never going to show me anything beyond the bounds of that clipping mask. And I could take this, I could make it a lot bigger. I would say for this project and in general, you don't want to go beyond 100% of what your native captures or your native footage is, whatever you're working on, because then it's inventing pixels and it's going to look blurry and not as good as it can. So for this project, make sure you do not scale your images beyond 100%. That's going to be something I'm going to be looking for craft. Let's just do another few frames. How about, let's do this one, a nice green one. So what do we want to put over there? How about this? Okay. It's under all those squares, so if I want to put it on the top, put it over there. I'm going to move it into the spot I want. Somewhere over here. Scale it. Maybe I'll scale it up, I'm not sure. And so then what is this? A1, B1, C1, D1, E1. So I'll move it all the way down to E1. Create a clipping mask. And there we go. And if I want to adjust it, no problem. And when we zoom in, it's perfectly crisp and sharp. And it'll print out nicely. Okay, so the squares let you keep track of where you are. We're using smart objects to preserve the fidelity. Your files might get gigantic. There's an alternate method written up in Canvas. That's what the other sections might be doing, and their files will be much smaller. And perhaps that's better, but this way will give you the highest quality images with the most flexibility.